Before we get started, I just want to take a moment to talk about Patreon. If you like the kind of content that I'm making and you want to help support the channel in a way that's more than liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing the video, the best way to do that is Patreon. Even $2 a month, which is the lowest tier at the moment, makes a huge difference. If you're the kind of person who's up for supporting a channel like this through Patreon, then please consider doing that. Now that that's said, let's get on with the video. Growing up, God was around, but I was never really explicitly told there is a God, God exists in any real way. I think it was implied in that there were people I looked up to in my life, family members, people at school and so on, who believed in a God, but it was never said there is a God to me, and I was never kind of indoctrinated. Thankfully, I was never indoctrinated into any particular religion. I did, however, go to a C of E school, which is a Church of England school, and every time I talk about that, I always feel like I need to mention the fact that there's this Dawkins, I think it's Dawkins, a Dawkins joke about how the Church of England is light. I think the Anglican Church and the Church of England are the same thing. I could be wrong, but I think that it's belief in God is optional, and that was very much my experience as well. It was the God part of the whole Church of England school thing, the Church of England part of the school thing wasn't very God focused. It wasn't that heavy. It was there, and it was a kind of norm, and you were expected to do the things that everyone else did as part of the practices, the traditions and stuff. And as far as believing, professing your belief or whatever, testifying and all that kind of stuff, it just wasn't, it wasn't that kind of thing. There were hymns, there was prayer, there was the nativity and all the seasonal stuff, and that was it, really. I don't know if anyone else had this, possibly other people that went to a C of E school and just weren't that enchanted by the whole God thing. I used to yawn every time we did hymns. We would start singing, and I'd get a few lines in, and there would be a ripping yawn that would stop me singing, and then I'd carry on and be like, and we did hymns every assembly. I don't really remember how often we did assemblies. There's a lot of stuff in my life at that point that's just not pleasant, and I don't remember a lot of it. This school in particular was actually a highlight, and I still remember it very fondly despite the religious stuff. That wasn't really a negative part of it for me. It was just a part of it, There weren't that many negative things that I could recognise at the time that would upset me. I had enough stuff going on around me in my life at that point, at home and so on and so forth, that I didn't really need more problems, and I didn't seek or find many problems at school. In fact, to some extent, school was kind of a safe haven, away from some of the that I had to deal with in other parts of my life. But that's a whole other story. Whenever there was prayer, which there was, I think every assembly again, there was a prayer, if I remember rightly. It doesn't take long for someone who's not that into prayer to realise that when everyone else puts their head down, closes their eyes and does this, if you don't, the consequences are pretty minimal. Unless there's someone there watching like a hawk to catch you out, in which case you have problems there because it's forcing people to pray and stuff. But in my case, anyone who wasn't praying, so in my case, if I wasn't praying and someone saw me not praying, they're also not praying, so they can't say anything. So it doesn't take long to realise that kind of thing. And I was never into any of the religious stuff, really. It always seemed sort of silly and strange to me, and I don't know whether it's just the irreverent sense of humour that has persisted throughout my life, or whether it was just the fact that because I hadn't really been indoctrinated into it in a family context necessarily, that I was able to take it lightly and see through it. There were people there that were, among the kids and stuff, I think sort of once a year or something, you'd go up to the local church, and there would be, I might be misremembering, I know that I've been to a bunch of schools in my life, and I was also homeschooled for a bit as well. the memories are blurry, and I should probably have verified some of this with some of the people that I still know from that time, family and some lifelong friends that I've had intermittent contact with since. But yeah, you go to the church services and stuff, and there were kids there who were just, like properly singing and getting into all the hymns and that, and I just wasn't. I was just like, this is the most dull experience I've ever had. Most dull? Dullest? Is dullest a word? So my overall sentiment towards God and religion and stuff when I was younger was just, it's boring. I'm just like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to sit in this church? Why do I have to sing these songs? I mean, they're fine, but why? Like any kid, your fondness for the question why is pervasive. And that didn't stop for me into my preteen years while I was at school and so on and so forth. The only times I can remember wanting there to be a God outside of because being exposed to the idea of a God, I was just like, whatever. I didn't want or not want, like there was no desire either way. But the only time I can remember really wanting there to be a God was when I didn't want to do PE, physical education, like sports and that at school, because I just hated it. I'm just not an active person. Even now, I make myself exercise, but I'm not an active person. And I wasn't then. I don't like sports. I never have liked sports. What's the point? I know some people like it and I can get that, but it's impressive, the things that people can do with their bodies. And when you train hard enough, you can do incredible things and manage things like that. Someone could kick a sack of wind from one end of a field to the other and get it on target is impressive to me, but I don't care for the game, not into it. And I wasn't then either. The only sport I kind of was into at school was like hockey, and I did that once, and it didn't go well, didn't enjoy it, never learned the rules, still don't know the rules of football. The only time I've ever, this is verging off from the actual story now, but the only time I've ever watched football, I've been to 2 football matches in my life. I watched England and Portugal, and then I think I watched like the under-25s or some England match. Both I went to the stadium to watch them, fell asleep. And anyone that knows me knows it takes a lot for me to fall asleep. I'm not someone that sleeps much, and I don't go down easy. So that's how bored I was. Anyway, going back to the actual thing that I'm supposed to be talking about. When I was younger, the only time I can remember wanting there to be a God really was when I didn't want to go to PE. And that's also the only time I really earnestly prayed when I was a kid as well. I was just like, God, please hurt me, injure me in some way that I don't have to do PE tomorrow. Bad enough that I don't have to go to school, or maybe that I don't have to go to PE, but I could maybe get to school but not PE. But if you're feeling generous, hurt me enough that I don't have to go to school, but not so much that I can't lay on the sofa and enjoy cartoons. I will accept illness if it's short-lived. And that was kind of it, really. That was my whole interest in God. And it was very much a reciprocal thing. And obviously it didn't happen. The prayers didn't, it did, after the prayers didn't work, I was trying to burn myself on the radiator so I didn't have to go, which didn't work either because it was never hot enough to actually burn me. It was hot enough to be uncomfortable, but it never burned me. And I don't know what I was thinking. If I burn my arm enough, then maybe I won't have to do PE. You can run around on a field with a bandage on your arm. Anyway, so it was very much like, do me a favour. It was like, yeah, I wanted something from this God, and that was the only reason I would be willing to accept that this God existed at that point. So I think actually earlier than that, I did go to like a Sunday school thing, like once, maybe twice. And I also went to a Catholic mass thing, which was dull. Like the Sunday school, all I can say is it was boring. It smelt like smelt old, right? Because it's a church and old books and that. I don't really have much of a memory of that. All I do remember is when we were in the mass, my dad was sitting next to me, and he's not religious. I doesn't care about all of this. The only reason we were there is because his partner at the time wanted us to go because her kids were being taken through communion and stuff, and I think she thought it was a nice idea that I would go as well. But anyway, so we were sitting there, and they're doing this whole, the song, the one that goes, glory. I don't know how long that goes on for, and then they go do 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 do. I don't know the words, don't care to. And so we're sitting there, and this song's going, and my dad just kind of looks at me, and then, you know, they're going glory, and he just looks at me and he goes, and that's the fondest memory I have of any kind of church service. That said, when I was at school and we used to go at Christmas time and stuff, the vibe was kind of nice. Like, they put candles up and it was quite a chill vibe. And again, it smelt of old, and the songs were boring. But the vibe, and like walking up to the church with all these other kids and stuff, yeah, I mean, that's fine. I think I did that actually at a later school. And now I'm trying to remember. I don't know if I did that at my primary school. I think I did that at a later school, and I'd moved, and lots of schools, as I said. I just didn't have any real belief in God, actually. There was no real faith or belief in a God. I wouldn't have known that that was atheism, but I just didn't really have a belief in a God until I got into this cult thing, actually. The first time I entertained the notion of a God, I think I mentioned that in a previous video, was like the Tao and that kind of, but it was very abstract and not really a God necessarily. The cult I got into, there's kind of an acceptance that there is a God. That's like a prerequisite for everything else. That if you think all that other stuff makes sense, then you have to kind of believe that thing as well. And of course it doesn't make sense, but you're brought along on a little journey that makes it seem like it makes sense. So you kind of accept that there is a God. And that's quite common in cults as well, that your previous beliefs sort of go out the window and you get new beliefs. So yeah, before that though, no God really. So it's like there was no God, and then there's a belief in a God for a bit, and now I'm back to no God again. Got myself back. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to hit the like button, and if you want to see more from me, then please hit subscribe and hit that bell as well so that you get notified when I upload new videos. The cats have been playing, but they've not really been around much, so say hi, Ned. Say hi, Ned, say hi. Now they're going to go back and wreak havoc again. If you want to get in contact with me personally, you can do that by clicking on the links in the description below. All my social media links are there. Probably use Twitter if you want to get like a quick response from me. Along with those links is my Patreon link. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you want to support the channel, Patreon is the best way you can do that. And while we're on Patreon, I just want to say a massive thank you to my current patrons as well. Manau, Amanda and Remus. Thank you so much for supporting this channel, for supporting me. It still baffles me that someone's willing to give me money to do this. It really means a lot, so thank you for that. That said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.